A hopeless romantic sees a chance to win the heart of his dream girl due to the appearance of their duplicates, while a couple discovers that they can duplicate organic things on their soil. While Jack and Sally plan supper, their canine, Jackson, starts to cry at the entryway as he needs to go out into the lawn. After letting it go, Sally moves on to making their meal. Jackson sniffs the burned-out area in the backyard. The dog is electrocuted for a few seconds before disappearing into thin air. Sally and Jack are compelled to investigate as soon as they hear the electricity crackling. They hear their dog but see two Jacksons when they look up to the roof. The couple concludes that Jackson was duplicated due to their soil after rescuing the two dogs from the roof. Jack puts his shoe inside because he is curious about how it works. He inserts a flower pot into the container when nothing happens. Sally is skeptical that it will work, but lightning strikes a few seconds later. Sally appears surprised as Jack ascends to the roof to view two flowers. Sally can't sleep that night because she's thinking about the possibilities of the cloning soil. Jack sees his wife gazing at the cloned flowers on the table by the window the following day. Later, he discovers her rambling about her confirmation of the cloning soil's ability to duplicate organic or living things. As a result, she used it to clone meat, eggplant, and a chocolate cake. Jack tries to stop her from eating one of the cakes because he is concerned that it might be poisonous. She nevertheless takes a bite and says it's fine. Sally says she won't tell anyone because they might lose the cloning soil, but Jack thinks they should. Jack gives his wife the order to look in the mirror and consider the consequences after being appalled by her behavior. Notwithstanding, when she does, Sally is roused by an alternate thought. Jack hears that something broke in the kitchen when he wakes up at night. When he gets up, another Sally is sweeping the broken glass in the kitchen, while Sally is still sleeping on the bed. He confronts the two Sallys later. He asks them where they went on their last date night to determine which one is real. Both women, at the same time, correctly pronounce the restaurant's name and even relate how Jack received overcooked salmon that he had to return. Pissed, Jack brings up that what his better half did is screwed up, and the two Sallys take a gander at one another. The original Sally is making breakfast in the morning when she hears her husband and the clone Sally laughing softly in the bathroom. She is heartbroken to discover that her husband and the clone are having a good time when she checks on them in the shower. The man says that they always take a morning shower together, but his real wife says that he should be with her. Desirous, she stomps off, and Jack follows her into the room, making sense of that she and her clone share recollections and encounters, making them a similar individual. Sally insists that she is the original, but he is unsure which of them is the duplicate. She gives Jack a kiss to persuade him, and the other Sally watches. Jack is in the middle of the bed where they all sleep that night. Both flowers are still alive and in full bloom the following day. When Jack gets home, he enters the living room to find the two Sallys having a good time watching television and laughing. One of them asks for margaritas as soon as they see him, so he goes to the kitchen to make them. That night, Jack checks out at photos of him and his significant other while considering over their circumstance. He grabs the cloned food from the fridge and puts it all in the garbage bag because he is concerned that the charred ground and its duplicating properties have affected his relationship. One of his wives watches with concern. Jack starts to feel like an outsider in his own home when he sleeps on the side of the bed and watches his two wives snuggle together. The following day, Jack fixes the ceiling in their living room while standing on a stool, unaware that one of his wives is approaching. Minutes after the fact, Jack is dead, and the two Sallys gaze at his body. After that, they turn to each other to decide what to do. They cover and conceal his body inside a closet together. As one of the blossom shrinks, one of the Jacksons becomes fixed as well. The faulty faucet is noticed by both Sallys, and one of them recalls that Jack was supposed to fix it. The remaining Jackson enters the room and licks Sally's feet as they nap on the table. She wakes up due to the dog's behavior, and when she sees something, she smiles with relief. She gets up, takes the flower that is still in bloom, and she leaves behind the one that is withered and her other unconscious self. Although this does not necessarily indicate whether the surviving Sally is the real thing or a duplicate, she is relieved to be still alive. Booker eats ice cream while listening to the radio in another location. He has heard of doubles who alter their facial features to appear less like their real selves. He finds a photo of himself and his crush Vera, surprising him with a spoon still in his mouth. Minutes after the fact, he hears the entryway open. He later walks to the bathroom and finds two toothbrushes that are identical. He finds this odd because he lives by himself. He decides to use mouthwash instead because he is worried about being late to work. Booker is having a meeting at work when he glances over at Vera in the room next door. Despite the fact that she seems disinterested, he can't help but smile as he watches her. But as soon as he sees the picture of the woman with her boyfriend Brian, he turns away. Booker watches a video of a female scientist talking about parallel universes the following morning while eating breakfast. She uses a turkey sandwich as an example, in which each slice is directly on top of the other, and the fourth dimension, which is represented by the mayonnaise, is just a thin layer. Gary, the vice president of the company, discusses the group's agenda and provides supportive feedback on the project in another meeting. Be that as it may, another Gary strolls into the workplace, diverting the representatives. The first Gary notices that they are looking at him and follows their gaze until he sees his double outside. Surprised by their double selves, the two approach one another. Book and his colleague Hugo discuss the bizarre circumstance in his car. Hugo wonders if the business will keep both Garys employed, but since the business can't have two vice presidents, that can't be the case. Pondering their manager's circumstance, Booker shares about the program that examined equal universes and how it's falling. He mentions that he now has two toothbrushes, one of which most likely belongs to his other self, who, as far as he is aware, has not yet appeared. His friend believes that the other version of Booker would be promiscuous, and Booker wonders what that would be like. The majority of his other selves, according to his friend, would probably be sad or pathetic. Unexpectedly, Hugo's telephone rings as his other form calls. Hugo goes outside to speak to his double after Booker persuades his hesitant friend to answer the call. Booker watches Vera and Brian as they approach their vehicle. Hugo is left behind when the man drives away from them. Booker is driving when he hears a report about a global crisis caused by an unidentified phenomenon called doubles. There are additionally unusual downpours, yet the journalist guarantees the public that it doesn't interface with the space-time irregularity. Many people who meet their doubles have reacted to the anomaly, with some struggling and rioting and others taking advantage of the opportunity to take on more responsibilities. Booker parks across the couple as they approach a house and watches as they enter. He talks to customer service later that evening while watching television. He gets a vision of his other self having an intimate relationship with a woman across the room when the agent on the phone puts him on hold. When the agent comes back, the call is abruptly cut off. He goes back to the other room and checks it again, and he sees his third self and another version of himself interacting. Booker flips the TV's channel and denies these visions. The show features Paul, a specialist in doubles, who asserts that clone people's strange appearances are unpredictable, similar to how Paul the original awoke confused when he saw his other self. Booker discovers when he wakes up the following day that Brian has been charged with homicide for the death of his double, who was sleeping with Vera. The reporter adds that this is the third double-related murder and another tragic case of mistaken identity. Booker becomes anxious when he learns the name of his ideal girl. Additionally, Vera does not show up to work that day, which further concerns him. Hugo and Booker talk about Brian and Vera's situation during their break. Booker is aware that it will be challenging to have a double because the former heard that the original Brian was shocked about killing his other self. Hugo asserts that there is a connection between the minds of the original self and the double. He adds that there is a flaw in the system because the man killed his counterpart and not another person, so even the court was unable to determine how to charge the case. After that, Booker talks about the visions he had last night of his double having an intimate relationship with a random woman and another version of himself. Despite his buddy's embarrassment, Hugo finds this fascinating. He redirects Booker's regard for a more extensive skyline, like various hells, and proposes what is happening would be challenging to acknowledge whether they were strict. Hugo then imagines the chaos that would ensue if hell and a parallel universe collided. Booker calls Vera later that night, but her number is disconnected. Booker continues to be concerned about Vera the following day, but Hugo reassures him that the woman is still recovering from the incident. Hugo tries to flee when he sees Gary approaching, but the man tells him to do something. Hugo walks out while the other man follows him, trying to get out of it by claiming that this Gary is not his boss. Booker then, at that point, sees the other Gary with Vera and rapidly gets back to his seat. On the other hand, he overhears her saying that she is another version of his crush and that she is now working for the original Vera. After that, the boss comes up to Booker and demands that he assist the new Vera in adjusting to their surroundings. Booker walks up to Vera, sees his chance, and asks her to lunch. She says yes. The man can't look away from the woman during lunch. They eventually get to the point where they feel at ease with one another and begin to enjoy themselves at work. Even though he has only been on 2 dates with Vera, Booker tells Hugo one night that he is in love with her. Booker assures Hugo that his worries about his friend moving too quickly are real because it feels like he has known Vera for a longer time. Hugo toasts his friend's new relationship as a sign of support. After that, Vera and Booker play word games in his car to pass the time. When the woman kisses him, the two are just getting to know each other. They talk about 5 people they'd like to have dinner with while eating ice cream on their way to Booker's house. When they get to his house, they find a different Booker standing there with a photo of them and a spoon still in his mouth. As their night and lives have just turned awkward, the double Booker drops the cup of ice cream while the couple sighs.